My sister's freeloader boyfriend laughed at our dad's heirloom birthday gift and called it garbage, and the next sound he heard was her saying, "We're done." My older sister is the kind of person a room rearranges itself around, and she spent 6 years with a man who could not get through one family dinner without correcting her on the law she practiced for a living. Saskia made partner before any of her classmates. Everyone assumed she would marry someone equally impressive. Instead, she brought home Tobin and stayed 6 full years. He moved into her apartment 4 months in. He never paid rent, never bought groceries, never covered a utility. He was between things, working on a business plan almost ready to launch. The same plan 2 years later, 4 years later, 6 years later. He drove her car. He used her credit card. He ate the food she carried home. What he did every single day was talk. He had a catchphrase for everyone, which was, "I was actually just reading about that." He said it before explaining corporate law to Saskia, a corporate lawyer. He said it before advising our father, a finance man of 30 years, on where to move his retirement. He called Saskia kiddo. She was a year older than him. He called her kiddo at the dinner table, in front of her boss at the firm holiday party, in front of our grandmother at her birthday. She asked him more than once to stop. He told her she was too sensitive about a term of endearment, and kept doing it. Every dinner he gave the same 45-minute pitch, same hand gestures, appetizer through dessert. He critiqued our mother's cooking every Sunday, chewing with his mouth open, telling Nadia the chicken needed salt and she should really look into a different olive oil. She smiled through it for 6 years. Underneath the talking, he kept a small set of lines about Saskia on rotation. She was too intense for most men. She was lucky he was secure enough not to feel threatened by her career. She needed him to keep her grounded. Saskia would give a tight smile that never reached her eyes and change the subject. Tobin would change it back. Our mother asked her once, gently, if she was happy. Saskia said Tobin was just rough around the edges and loved her in his own way. And that was the end of it, because she was a grown woman. And the one thing she would not accept was being told she had picked wrong. He got more comfortable as the years went by. He started snapping at Luca when our father offered him job leads. He started making remarks about Saskia's weight and the clothes she wore to work, in front of all of us, while she sat there and pretended none of it touched her. I used to watch her face go smooth and careful, the way it does when she is in a deposition and will not give anything away, and I would think, that is my sister, hiding inside her own dinner table. It broke over a necklace. Last spring we had dinner at our parents' for her 37th birthday. Nadia ordered her favorite cake. Luca had wrapped a gift he had been saving for a year. I had written her a letter. Tobin brought nothing, and was on his second telling of the pitch before we sat down. Our father slid a small box across the table. Saskia opened it and started to cry, because the necklace inside had belonged to our grandmother, and she had not known Luca still had it. Tobin watched her cry for about 10 seconds. Then he laughed and asked our father why he was giving a piece of junk like that to a woman who could buy whatever she wanted. He said Saskia did not need sentimental garbage from this family, because she had him. Then he pulled out his phone, looked it up, and announced it was maybe $40 on a good day. Saskia stopped crying. She put the necklace back in the box and closed it. She stood, walked to where he sat, and asked him very calmly to step into the next room with her. He went, still smiling, sure he could smooth it over. We could not hear her. We heard every word of his answer. He told her kiddo. She was making a scene over nothing. He told her she was just like our mother. He told her that if she did not have him, she would be alone the rest of her life because nobody else would put up with how much she worked. He told her she was lucky he had stayed this long. Saskia walked back out alone, and she had already put on the necklace, and her hands were steady. Tobin followed 2 minutes later, wearing the face he always used to win, shoulders slumped, eyes soft and wounded, like he was the one who had been hurt. He reached his hand across the table and said, "Okay, we both said things we didn't mean. Can we just enjoy your birthday?" The whole room held its breath because this was the move, the gentle reset, the let's pretend that didn't happen that had worked on her for 6 straight years. Saskia looked at his hand. Then she moved hers into her lap and told him, in a voice that did not shake, that she had already called him a car and his things would be boxed by tomorrow. His face flickered like a bad bulb. He leaned in. "Kiddo, come on." Over a necklace. And my father did something I had never seen him do. Luca set down his napkin, slow and deliberate, looked across the table and said, "She asked you not to call her that. For 6 years she asked you." One sentence, and it landed like a brick, because in 6 years of Sunday dinners, Luca had never once spoken to Tobin directly. Tobin pivoted hard. He laughed through his nose, stood, and announced to all of us that this family had always had it out for him, that he was the only one who ever told Saskia the truth. He pointed at Nadia. "Your mother smiles at me and talks behind my back. Your father looks at me like I'm dirt." He was trying to make her choose him or us. That was the play. But something had changed in Saskia's face when our father spoke, and Tobin did not see it. I did. 6 years of biting my tongue at that table, 6 years of watching him talk down to her and insult my mother's food, and lecture my father about money and call her kiddo, like she was a child he was raising instead of the woman who paid every bill he had. So I opened my mouth for the first time in 6 years. I said, "We didn't talk behind your back. We talked to Saskia's face. She just loved you too much to hear it." He turned on me, red, and pointed. "Stay out of this. This is between me and her." And Saskia's voice came clear and final from across the table. "No, it stopped being between us the second you called my father's gift garbage." He cycled through his options, charm, guilt, blame, and none of them worked. He grabbed his jacket and stormed for the door, then stopped in the frame for the last word he could never leave without. "You're 37, Saskia. You really think someone else is lining up?" She did not flinch. She looked at the man who had lived free in her apartment for 6 years and said, "I'd rather be alone than be your excuse for not having a life." The door slammed hard enough to rattle the frames in the hall. Then Nadia picked up the cake knife and said, "Well, who wants the first slice?" And we laughed until it hurt. Saskia laughed so hard she had to cover her mouth, and there were tears in her eyes, but they were not the kind I had watched her swallow for 6 years. It was the first real breath any of us had taken in that long. I knew it was not over. A man who builds his whole life on top of someone else's does not accept an ending he did not write. I drove Saskia home that night. His key was on the counter, his car was gone. At 2 in the morning, she texted me that he had been calling every 15 minutes. By the time I got to her apartment at 6, she was at the table in last night's clothes, clothes, a cold coffee in front of her, and she looked up and said, 14. 14 voicemails, midnight to almost 5. She had answered none and listened to all. The first was soft and shaking. I just want to understand. I love you. Please talk to me. If you did not know the 6 years behind it, you might have felt sorry for him. The third one, he was sniffling, telling her he couldn't sleep, asking for 5 minutes on the phone. By the fifth, there was an edge creeping in under the tears, a knife under a blanket. By the eighth, the crying was gone, and his voice was flat and hard. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. No one in your family ever liked me because they are threatened by someone who challenges them. The 14th was 3 minutes of breathing, and her name, twice, and a hang-up. She turned the phone face down. I almost called him back at 4, she said. He sounded so broken. What if I'm being too harsh? It was just a comment about a necklace. And there it was, 6 years of his voice coming out of her mouth, making the thing she was upset about sound so small she felt crazy for being upset. I said, it wasn't about the necklace. It was 6 years of him telling you you're too much and not enough at the same time. The necklace just made you finally hear it. She knew I was right. But that kind of thing does not leave because you had one strong night. It is in the walls, and you pull it out piece by piece. Then my phone rang. Nadia, voice tight. Tobin showed up here 30 minutes ago. He had parked, climbed the steps, and sat on the porch. Luca told him to leave. He did not. He sat there a full hour telling my father that Saskia was having an emotional episode and the family was enabling her, like a doctor who read one article and diagnosed the daughter the man had raised. When Nadia finally called through the screen door that she would have him removed, he stood, brushed off his pants like the porch was dirty, and told Luca, you're going to lose your daughter over this. I watched the guilt drain out of Saskia's face in real time, and something harder take its place. He went to our parents' house. He told Dad I was having an episode. She picked up her phone and blocked his number in 4 seconds. I need his stuff out of here today. I don't want him to have a reason to come back. That was the moment the voicemail stopped working. Not because she had turned strong overnight, but because he had gone after the people she loved, run his playbook on them, and crossed a line he did not know existed. Luca came with boxes. Nadia came with garbage bags and a look she had been saving 6 years. 6 years of living in her apartment, eating her food, driving her car, and his entire life fit in 3 boxes. Clothes she had bought him, a broken laptop he had been meaning to fix for 2 years, a rubber-banded stack of business plans, the same pages reprinted with new dates on the cover like changing the year would make it real. Saskia held that stack for a long moment. She did not say anything. She just looked at all those pages, all those years of him at her table telling everyone he was about to launch something big, and then she set it on top of the pile and turned away. Luca left the boxes at the front desk with a note that Tobin could pick them up anytime. When we were done, the apartment looked exactly the same. Every wall, every shelf, every dish was Saskia's. He had lived inside her life like a guest who never checked out. She changed the locks that evening. 2 quiet days. She went back to work and wore the necklace every day. Then she called on Wednesday with a voice I had not heard before. Tobin showed up at my office. Not the lobby, her floor. He had walked past reception saying he was her partner and was waiting outside her office with flowers when she came out of a meeting. And he was not alone. I drove there so fast I do not remember it. Just pulling into the garage and almost forgetting to turn the car off. And when I reached her floor, the receptionist looked at me the way people do when something uncomfortable just happened, and they are not sure how much they are allowed to say. She told me the rest. He had brought a woman, introduced her as Chelsea, his new partner in business and in life, said he just wanted to return something and wish Saskia well, and stayed almost an hour. In the conference room with the blinds drawn, Saskia told me he had walked into her office without knocking, set down a cheap bouquet with the grocery price tag still on the plastic, and said, no hard feelings. Chelsea and I are launching the company next month. I finally found someone who believes in me. She had stared at him and said, you've been broken up with me for 4 days, and you brought a new girlfriend to my workplace? And he smiled and said he just thought she would want to know he was doing well. She was not hurt, she told me. She was angry because he had done it at the one place she had built over a decade, in front of the colleagues she managed who all pretended not to watch through the glass. He wanted everyone here to see him move on first, so they'd think I'm the one who got left. She was right. This was not about Chelsea, a woman I do not think he even knew. It was about control. He could not live in a version where she walked away, so he had to rewrite it, show up happy and successful and new. So the story became, Tobin moved on, not Saskia finally kicked out her freeloader. The real damage came after. 20 minutes after he left, a senior partner she respected pulled her aside and said carefully that personal situations playing out in the office were not a good look. That was all. She had worked there over a decade, made partner on merit, billed more than anyone in her department, and never once let her private life through those doors. 1 hour of Tobin had done it for her. She had security put his name on the banned list, but the ban was not the point. She told me all of it with her hands flat on the conference table, and the anger coming off her in waves, and I understood it was not the necklace anymore, and it was not even Chelsea. It was that he had finally found the one room she had kept him out of and walked into it smiling. He had reached into the one part of her life he had never been able to touch and left a mark on it. That night I called Malachi, who I trust more than almost anyone and who stood outside all of it. I told him everything. The necklace, the voicemails, the porch, the office, Chelsea. He was quiet a long moment, then said, he's not going to stop. Parents' house, then her office. He's testing which boundaries she won't enforce. The next place is worse. She needs to send one message that there's nothing left to come back to. Not a conversation. Not a negotiation. A wall. And I knew why that was so hard. Saskia had spent 6 years being reasonable, and being reasonable was exactly what Tobin exploited. Every fair gesture he heard as an opening. Every explanation he treated as a negotiation he could win by simply talking until you got tired. I had watched it work 100 times. The only way to beat a man who never stops talking is to stop giving him anything to talk to. So we would not explain. We would build something he could not talk through. Our grandmother Haven's 90th birthday was that Saturday. The whole family in one place, and a man like Tobin could not stand being left out of a room he used to sit in. I was counting on him to come. I called Nadia first. She said, I don't want a scene at your grandmother's party. Haven is 90. I understood. Keeping things nice is who she is, and it is exactly what he had fed fed on for 6 years. I said one uncomfortable moment now saves us a year of him playing the victim at every gathering. Then I heard Luca in the background. Clear. Your sister has been protecting that man's feelings for 6 years. It's our turn to protect hers. Nadia let out a long breath and said, okay. Saskia was harder. I don't want Haven to see that. Old instinct, responsible for everyone's comfort, terrified of being too much. The exact phrase he had used to keep her small. So I told her the truth. Haven watched you flinch every time he called you kiddo at her birthday. She sees more than you think. Our grandmother has eyes like a hawk and has never missed a thing in her own family. And Saskia knew it. She just had not wanted to believe the people she loved had been watching her hurt and staying quiet. Finally, she asked what I needed her to do. Nothing, I said. Show up. Wear the necklace. If he comes, the family handles it together. All of us. Saturday was clear and smelled like spring. Nadia was already cooking. Luca was at the grill out back, the kind of man who handles big moments by keeping his hands busy. Haven arrived and got settled in her chair by the window, sharp as ever, taking attendance with her eyes. When Saskia walked in wearing the necklace, Haven touched it with her fingertips, then touched my sister's face and said, that looks better on you than it ever did on me. I had watched my grandmother say maybe 4 sentences a year for as long as I could remember, and she had just spent one of them on the necklace, which told me she had been keeping a longer count than any of us. Saskia pressed her lips together and kissed her forehead, and the room went quiet because it did not need words. Then Frederick found me, a family friend who has known us since before I was born, who knew Saskia as a teenager talking about law school with fire in her eyes. I heard what happened, he said. If that boy shows up, let me say something to him. I asked what. I'd tell him I watched Saskia grow into the most capable woman I know, and the only thing she ever got wrong was giving him a seat at her table. I asked him to stand near the door, and he understood without me explaining, and went and stood there with a glass of water and a presence that made you feel nothing bad could get past him. An hour passed, and a part of me almost wanted him to come, because I wanted the family to be the wall I had promised Saskia we would be. An hour in, the party sounded the way family parties are supposed to. Loud, warm, someone telling a 30-year-old story everyone has heard. Saskia had not checked her phone once. Then I stepped onto the porch and saw 2 cars I did not know at the curb, and my phone buzzed. A number I did not have saved. Tell Saskia I'm outside and I just want 5 minutes. I brought someone she should meet. We can do this the easy way or the loud way. I went in and held the phone out to her without a word. She read it the way she reads contracts. Careful, thorough. And then, for the first time in 6 years, my sister smiled with her whole face. Not the tight smile from the dinner table, a real one, wide and warm, and a little dangerous. The smile of a woman not scared of what is on the other side of the door. She handed it back and said, let him in. Tobin walked in with Chelsea behind him and smiled at the room like he had been invited, holding up an $8 bottle of wine. I know things have been tense, but I wanted to congratulate Haven and introduce everyone to Chelsea. No hard feelings, right? He waited for the usual polite discomfort he could fill with his own voice. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved to take the wine. Haven looked at him from her chair, and her face was not angry or sad. It was nothing. The look you give someone not worth the breath it would take to speak. The silence was louder than anything he had ever talked over, and I watched his smile tighten as his eyes went around the room hunting for someone who would break. Frederick stepped forward, calm and even, every word landing harder for it. Tobin, I watched you sit at this table for 6 years and talk about yourself while the most impressive person in the room poured your drinks. Nobody wants your wine. You were asked to leave Saskia's life, and showing up with a stranger doesn't change that. It just proves why she asked. Tobin opened his mouth and closed it. He tried to laugh. I didn't come here to fight. And Luca's voice came from the doorway. Final. Then don't. Pick up your bottle and go. Tobin turned to Chelsea for backup, but Chelsea was reading the room, Haven in her chair, Nadia in the doorway, Saskia in the middle of it all with the necklace at her throat. She said, quiet. You told me she left you out of nowhere and her family was controlling. That's not what this looks like. His face changed. The edge came out. Don't start. You don't know these people. Chelsea took one small step back that everyone saw. I think I know enough. She set the bottle on the table by the door and walked out. Tobin watched her go, and for the first time in 6 years, I saw real panic. Not the performance, the actual thing. A man who had just found the floor was not where he thought. He turned to Saskia. 6 years? You're really going to let them do this to us? And that word, us, hung there like something rotting. Saskia crossed to him steady, stopped 2 feet away, touched the necklace once like she was checking it was still there, and said, you called my dad's gift garbage. You looked at the thing that meant everything to me, and you laughed, and then you told me I was lucky to have you. I spent 6 years thinking you were right. Too much. Too intense. That I needed you to keep me grounded. But you weren't grounding me. You were burying me. And I'm done digging. I had never heard my sister say a true thing to him without softening it first, and she did not soften this. He had nothing. No line. No pivot. Then Haven spoke. The only thing she would say to him, soft and clear from her chair, young man, I gave that necklace to my son to give to someone who deserved it. He gave it to Saskia. You are not part of that chain. You never were. Tobin looked around one last time for a crack, a flinch, anyone who would say, let's all calm down. There was no one. He picked up the bottle, walked to the door, stopped with his back to us. You're all going to regret this. Saskia's voice came calm and final. I only regret the 6 years. The door closed behind him. Not a slam, just a quiet click. He picked up his 3 boxes that week and never came back. Saskia wears the necklace every day. The chair he used to take stays empty.